operated restaurants in the past, designed cocktail menus, food menus for good chefs, mixologists, sommeliers. So this is, it's so great to be back here at the RC show. We have a lot of things going on, not only here on the bar and beverage stage, but everywhere throughout the show. It's busy, as you can see. Everyone's busy networking, connecting, learning. We have a lot of amazing highlights. This year, I just want to share with you quickly, we have the Trinity Market pop-up experience. I'm not sure if you got a chance to check that out yet. I haven't, because I've been here, but later on I'm going to check it out. This is a very new experience, creative vision from Chef Matt Dean Pettit, and this interactive snack bar concept features tapas-style food and celebrate the best of Ontario, what Ontario has to offer. So you'll also get a chance to hear from Matt shortly sometime during this afternoon. Also, Growth Series. This is the very first ever in the show. It's a series to help operators and F&B innovators to get retail-ready access distribution, commercialized products for market, and to help with successor export as well. And the return of the RC Show's amazing signature events, we have our opening night party tonight. So I hope you, yes, Margot is going to be there with me. Opening night tonight, 5 o'clock at the Heritage Court, so don't miss that. Everyone is invited, so if you don't know, the Heritage Court is just back there on the right-hand side. So make sure you meet us there at 5 o'clock after the show. We're going to party. And also our industry night out and breakfast with champions are back this year, so which is really exciting. And of course, we have 325,000 square feet of endless sampling of food and beverage from all of our vendors. We have over 1,000 booths, 9 pavilions, 7 stages. We have a lot in store for you this afternoon. So you've heard a lot from our speakers this morning. We've had an incredible panel discussion so far. How are you guys doing? You can join us and sit down here. We have a lot of chairs here. Please join us. We have an amazing panel discussion coming up. Also, just don't forget to tag us when you take your photos or videos, hashtag RC Show, and then tag all of our accounts, Twitter, Instagram, at Restaurants Canada. We want to see your photos. We want to share your photos as well and videos and your experience here at the RC Show this year. So without further ado, we're going to, I promised you earlier, Titans of Canada's beer industry. They're here on stage, but before that, I want to introduce you to a special man here who's going to be presenting some trends. Joe Pollack, Managing Principal of Technomic, on stage joining us before our panel discussion. Welcome, Joe. Round of applause, please.
Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everybody. Before we bring our esteemed panel up, I want to share some data and information with you. If you're not familiar with Technomic, we're a restaurant industry consulting and research firm. We operate primarily in North America, but we do also a fair amount of global work. And I want to talk a little bit, again, the session is called The Big Picture, so kind of like a play in the big picture. And we're going to talk about Canada and what's happening in Canada relative to beer trends and what we're seeing, what's happening. I think it's pretty interesting to what we're seeing, especially when we talk about the menu and what we're seeing relative to beer. First of all, what we do in one of our programs, which is called Ignite Menu, is we evaluate menus of restaurants throughout all of Canada, and we look at what we call mentions. So this is the number of offerings that operators have of a number of different categories, not just beer, but also if you look at food items, etc. But looking at beer as an example, if we compare 2022 versus 2021, the number of beer mentions were up 7.4%. So that means that operators are putting 7.4% more offerings of beer on their menu than they did in 2021. Now, if we compare that to pre-pandemic, because we know there's been a lot of rationalization of menus during the pandemic, where operators took beer off the menu because of just not being open. There was no reason to have beer because they didn't have sit-down business. But still, if we look at, compared to the pre-pandemic in first quarter of 2020, it's still up 2% in 2022, which is great news, that the beer business is revitalized in 2022. And where are we seeing the fastest growing areas? Number one is, you look at, it's alcohol-free beer, 19% increase in mentions. Flavored malt beverages up 14%. Domestic beer, 12%. Imported beer, 8%. Hard sparkling water and soda, craft beer, 4%. Hard cider. So again, we're seeing an increase in beer, which is good news for this business. Now, if we look at top flavors, and again, this is in terms of increase of overall incidence. So again, this is overall incidence. So this is the percentage of operators that have one of these on their menu. And again, not big percentages, but we're seeing these starting to pop up on menus relative to the type of flavors we're seeing. 2% of menu incidence, or 2% of the mentions of beer have mango in them. Interesting. You see 2% says fruity relative to beer. Pineapple 2%, black cherry 1%. If you add these all together, it's saying that in terms of the mentions of these type of flavors in the menu are over 10%. So again, we're seeing a lot more flavors being associated with beer. And again, this is kind of a trend we're not only seeing in beer, but in a lot of other beverages, whether it be coffee, sparkling waters, we talk about the smoothie business, etc. A lot more flavor mentions when we're talking about beverages. Now, when we talk about pricing, as we know, on menus and certainly on raw materials are going up pretty dramatically, showing all the number of different categories and how pricing has increased. You see overall, on an overall basis, you see that 1 year price change on the menu is about 5%. But if you look at certain categories, it's above that 5%. You look, hard cider's up 10% year over year. Domestic beer, 9%. Imported beer, 8%. Alcohol-free beer, about 8%. And some of them a little bit less. Actually, when you look at craft beer, a little bit low, saw a slight decline of 2%. But an increase of 5% or 4.6% year over year. So we have seen inflation on a year over year basis, 22 versus 2021, when we talk about menus. This is, again, pretty much of a little bit of an eye chart again, but I want to talk to you a little bit about demographics of beer drinkers. And really want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, let's talk about the right-hand column first. And this is where we start seeing where you see higher propensity of drinking beer compared to the overall casual dining beverage drinkers. So, as an example, if you're 100 on here, that means that you're the average drinker of beer compared to all beverages in casual dining. Okay? So, as an example, at 129, that means males are have a much heavier propensity to drink beer in casual dining restaurants than females, which are at 68. So any of those greens, you see a higher propensity to drink beer. So South Asian, other Asian, and Chinese, much higher propensity to drink beer than you see, as an example, other 100, which is other, and then let's see. Let's see this very well. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Hispanic, Latino, Chinese, and then other Asian. Also, on the higher end there, you see that millennials also higher propensity to drink beer than others. Now, when you look at a year-over-year change, where we're seeing increase in drinking beer versus the previous year, millennials, although they over-index, they're drinking less beer than they did in 2021. Same thing with Black African American, as well as South Asian, and also in the higher income groups, but where we see more among Gen Z, Gen Xers, Latino Hispanics, and then those between 25 and 75,000. We look at a lot of occasions when we start talking about where people are drinking beverages or eating foods. I think this is pretty interesting in terms of where people kind of fall into the different groups, and especially when we start talking about casual dining. So, day of the week, if you look at overall casual dining average, so for day of the week, 36% of casual dining average business is within Monday through Thursday, 36% of consumers say they go to, 36% of casual dining consumers say they go to casual dining between Monday and Thursday. 53% say they go between Friday and Saturday. Sundays, 11%. But look at the different propensity, and you see how it's very similar among those that drink beer in casual dining. Now look at consumer need states. I think this is pretty interesting. You can go to restaurants for a number of occasions or need states. Experience. If you want to have an experience, on average, when you want an experience, you go to casual dining, it's 33% of the time. But if you want to have a beer, it's 39% of the time. So think about that when you're thinking about how you're marketing to your consumer. They want more of an experience, so that's how you market to them with beer. Interesting, this was very interesting. When they want to have a better for you experience, so they want to have a more healthy experience, it's 20% of the occasions overall, but 29% of the occasions when they have a beer. So there's some health element for having a beer with a meal when they go to casual dining restaurants. When they have a craving for something, it's much less of a propensity to having a craving for something when they have a beer. So that's a little counterintuitive to what we see on the data. So, recent consumer, when you look at the occasions in terms of what people are purchasing, and based on their last consumer ordering, what did they purchase the last time? You can see, again, this is between 2022 and 2021. Again, 2021 is the darker bar, 2022 is the lighter bar. You can see much fewer consumers have purchased a domestic full calorie beer in 2022 than they did in 2021. More on domestic light, more on imported full calorie, more on premium craft, more on imported light, more cider, more hard seltzer, and more flavored malt beverage. Really what's taking a hit is that domestic full calorie. People are moving towards either lighter beer or more specialty type beer in their experiences when they drink beer in casual dining. Okay, with that I'm going to bring back Christina to introduce our panel. So thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Joe. As always, thank you so much. Let's do when you're leaving, Joe. You can't stay for the party tonight, are you sure? You're gonna go back now. Thank you so much for that, for amazing insights on our restaurant and beer trends for sure. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panel. We have our moderator, CJ Healy, President of Beer Canada. Round of applause. And our guest panelist, Manjit Minhas, owner and CEO of Minhas Brewery and Distillery, and Dragon Investor at CBC's Dragon's Den. Have you guys heard of that show? Yeah, pretty big show. Lindsay Wilson, Director of Marketing, Molson Coors Beverage Company, and Natalie Lucas, Director of Beyond Beer, Labatt Breweries in Canada. Round of applause, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. Really happy to be here today with you. My name is CJ. I'm the President of Beer Canada, and some people have said on radio recently the best job in the world. I tend to agree. Before starting, I'd like to introduce, with a short bio, our esteemed panelists today. Manjit Minhas is the co-founder and co-owner of Minhas Breweries, Distilleries, and Wineries, and also one of the dragons on Dragon's Den, as we just heard. Though trained as a petroleum engineer, she has become a specialist in brand development, marketing, sales management, and retail negotiations, having been recognized for several business industry awards, such as Profit Magazine's Top Growth Entrepreneur, Top 100 Women Entrepreneurs in Canada, Canada's Top 40 Under 40, Chatelaine Magazine's Top Entrepreneur Woman of the Year, 2011. I think she's an entrepreneur. Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year, Prairie Region, and the Sikh Centennial Foundation Award 2015. Welcome, Lindsay. Lindsay Wilson started her career on the agency side of the business. In experimental marketing, Lindsay found a love for bringing brands to life and finding interesting and unique ways for them to interact with consumers, with clients such as Nike, Kellogg's, and RBC. Her journey in marketing continued as she started her career in beer as the brand manager at Corona Extra and Modelo Brands. She has continued to learn and grow at Molson Coors Beverage Company, working across the craft portfolio and most recently leading the Heineken brands, including Heineken 0.0 for 4 years in Canada. She has now proudly taken on the Beyond Beer seltzer and flavor portfolio with Labatt's Brewers of Canada, which is a growth engine for Molson Coors Beverage Company. Natalie Lucas is a seasoned marketer with cross-industry experience, developing strategies for a range of verticals from automotive to retail and consumer products. At Labatt, where she's been for the past 8 years, Natalie has led a number of campaigns, including the production of Underplayed, the Bud Light produced a documentary that premiered at TIFF about gender inequality in electronic music, as well as the launch of Beverage Stage. She's also led numerous innovations, including Labatt's first non-alcoholic offering, Budweiser Prohibition Brew, Mike's Hard Iced Tea, and the expansion of Cutwater into Canada, amongst many others. She's worked on the #1 and #2 largest beer brands in the country, Bud Light and Budweiser, and the fastest growing brand, Michelob Ultra. Currently, she is the head of Beyond Beer brands at Labatt, overseeing Nutri, Mike's Hard, Palm Bay, and Cutwater. Just a quick round of applause for our moderators today. So Joe has some very interesting data, and we'll get into that in a second, but we have 3 esteemed women, successful leaders in the beer category. So maybe we'll start off with talking a little bit about inclusion and diversity, and maybe how do you find the current state of diversity, either within the brewing sector or within your operation yourself?
Hi there. Well, thanks for having us. Well, it's nice to be here, back in person. And so, in answer to your question, I think that there definitely is a lot of movement. I've been in the industry for 23 years. I started with my brother when I was 19, and definitely I was not the norm for what was in not only the beer industry, but the spirits industry also. And so I'm really happy to see over 2 decades that there has been movement, and there's women on every level, whether it be in the C-suite, it be brewers, distillers, marketers, salespeople, like across the board. And I think that the industry has opened itself up to the expertise of women, also realize that they are not only 50% of the population, but they have something to bring to the organizations and have a unique perspective. And so I'm really excited that it's moving forward. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think it's moving in the right direction for sure.
That's a great answer. I was just going to say, it's interesting. 14 years ago, I can remember in Molson, we had 1 bathroom stall for women, right? And that was, I remember thinking, wow, you know? And now 14 years later, we have 1 in every 3 employees that are female. And that's, again, across the whole organization. It's something that makes me and our whole leadership team super proud because again, it's a good stat, but we're not checking boxes. It makes us better as a company. It makes us better to our consumers. And most of all, it makes us better to our customers, which is so important.
And I think for me, it's also not just how we look at it internally, because obviously we want to be promoting and recruiting more women and more diverse spaces to the industry. But I think you're starting to see a lot of brands also take a stand around how they activate. Obviously, you can only do that if you actually believe it and live it within the organization. But some examples with, the Bud Light Underplayed documentary, the fact that, this was a brand that took a stand and wanted to talk about women's inequality in a space that they sponsored, I think was a really big shift for the beer industry at the time. And so you're starting to see that a lot more with brands taking a stand and also doing more with their marketing resources to have that sort of dialogue with their consumers.
I totally agree. I also would say that I love, it's not only women, I think the whole diversity piece, the diverse voices, age, gender, experience, meaning where they're born, where they come from, wasn't usually the case because everybody wanted that Canadiana, North Americana feel. And so now actually it means better business if you're able to have diverse voices and experiences from around the world to bring it to your marketing table, to your innovation table, to different tables within the organization that speak to your customers, which are all not just one box anymore. And I think that that whole word of diversity is, like you say, both sides, and it's changed the view of what a beer company especially is and who they are.
I was gonna say, CJ, we can stay on this question. You're gonna have to move us off, but like I heard the other day, 1 in 4 people is not born in Canada, right? Like our country is so diverse. So again, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Natalie, I'll start with you. If there's a young woman who's interested in maybe pursuing a career in beer, what advice would you give her as she was trying to find a path for that she could be successful?
I mean, I don't think it should be any different. I think within the beer industry, obviously, the biggest thing is there's so many different resources now that I even like when I was back in school didn't exist. So at Labatt specifically, there's the leadership accelerator, there's general management training programs. Those are very much open to everybody. And we've taken a huge initiative to also really put a focus on recruiting those previously underrepresented faces. And so, especially with our leadership accelerator. But I think once you know you want to go into the industry, you just have to ask yourself ultimately what it is that you want to achieve. Like, you can go in and you can go do the general management training route where you are dabbling in a lot of different things so that you can figure out what it is that you really want. Or in my case, I knew exactly what I wanted. I always wanted to go into marketing, and so I set my sights on that, and you grow within those roles. So your career path can be so drastically different, but I think that just know the resources that exist that are at the recruitment stage, and then better understand also what that organization stands for. So again, for someone who eventually wants to become a parent, whether male or female, Labatt offers not only just maternity top-ups, but also family planning for surrogacy, adoption. And if that's something that in the future you want, that could be something that you're looking for in a benefits package. So I think it's just being, having a good understanding of what it is that you want, whether you're, male, female, part of the BIPOC community, whatever it is, just like having that focus and then just doing your research to understand the best path forward, because a lot of those exist within the infrastructures that have been built at a people level.
I was just going to say, I had a coach once that said, trust your energy and trust your shoulders. So when you're interested and love something, your body will tell you that. And I think, again, beer is a great example of like every single day, I have a moment where, even on the bad days where I'm like, I'm so lucky to do this. I can't believe this is my job. And I think that's a really good sign, right? And just to the point of, Molson Coors has a massive internship program that we invest so much in, and going around and talking to all sorts of people in different universities across Canada, and get some of the greatest talents and have some of the best conversations, right? And it's so important to keep doing that.
Yeah, I would say, especially to anybody who wants to get into beverage, especially beer, first of all, please like beer before you get into our industry. I know it sounds like really automatic, but not the case. I can tell you, if you're interviewing and you're asked what's your favorite beer, you better have an answer, and it better be genuine. So drinking beer is usually a good thing and liking the product. But I would say no matter which company that you're interested in as Molson Labatt, or the hundreds and hundreds of craft breweries that exist in this country, I would say do your research. I would say talk to the people that work there to see all of the different types of jobs there are. You don't only, and I think many people have thought for a very long time, you have to only be a beer salesperson, or there's only specific jobs, but there's so many wide-ranging jobs and specialties that you have to just ask a couple people that work there and find out really what the pros and the cons and the good and the bad is, and where you can maybe fit in and see a career trajectory. So I would say don't live in your own bubble and only believe what you read online. Actually meet some people that work at those companies.
Lindsay, you talked about coaching, and that flows into mentorship. How important were mentors were you to you going through the process, and are you playing it forward in terms of being mentoring for some of the younger people at your company today? Absolutely.
I think mentorship is so important, whether you're male, female. I mean, we talk about diversity, inclusion. It's super duper important, and it lies in places you don't always expect, right? So I think one of the most common misconceptions of people think you have to go up to somebody and say, will you be my mentor? And that is very purposeful, and that exists, absolutely. But then again, just asking questions, right? And just talking to people and understanding if you can have that mentor relationship is super important. It's actually how I got into beer. I was sitting in a beer garden in Georgian Bay, and I was writing down notes. I love marketing, I love beer, and I was writing down notes, and this gentleman came up and said, you know, what do you don't look very happy. And I said, well, I have so many ideas. And he said, okay, Smarty Pants, come in for an interview. And that's literally, so it lies in a lot of different places, and he actually became my mentor throughout my beer career, so it lies in different places.
Be no surprise to hear that beverage alcohol is a very heavily regulated and heavily taxed business, and on the on-premise sector, beer is a huge profit driver for that channel. And we were almost hit with a 6.3% tax hike on April 1st. With the help of Restaurants Canada and a lot of other supply chain partners, that was reduced to 2%. Wondering how you feel about the role of brewers in influencing public policy, and the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. You've been around and talked to governments almost every day. What's your impression of positive government relations?
I think that a good government is always talking to its stakeholders and understanding the good and the bad, the pros and the cons, because they can never know an industry and how there might be unintended consequences of policy decisions. And I think that it's on everybody in every industry, every company, every sector, no matter what your scale, to talk to government about what you're doing, what your hopes are, and especially in an industry like ours, where our futures, our profitability, our reach is tied to them so much, and it's constantly changing. One thing I learned a very, very long time ago, that a politician told me, that there's nothing status quo in beer, especially, because everybody wants their hands in it. And so I think that it's one of those things that you have to inform yourself, you have to definitely do a lot more talking, and simple understanding. I think that too many people can get into the weeds and lose a lot of the government officials who are making decisions on our behalves. And so it is about communication and constant communication to understand where the industry is going, what's changing, what are other countries doing that can affect us positively or negatively. And I think that it's important that we're always staying on top of being at the forefront of best practices, but having governments in some cases get out of our ways, and in some cases help us. When it comes to trade and a variety of things, they can help us if they do it in the right way, but it's a matter of telling them what we need from them. And sometimes we, as citizens and as businesses, assume that governments will know how to help us, but they don't know.
My personal view is that the excise would not have been reduced if local MPs had not badgered the Minister of Finance
100%.
and local MPs engaged with the Minister, because local pub owners, local workers went to that office, sent them emails and said, it's not the right time to impose a new 6.3% tax on the hospitality sector. So everybody who reached out to their local MPs, thank you. And there are more issues coming down the pipe, so be engaged. Let's dive into a little bit of the market trends that Joe talked about. And the number one fear factor I saw on this slide was the pricing side. Those are some really aggressive pricing numbers, and maybe we'll come back to that later. But the bright side was on the low and non-alcoholic. So maybe, Natalie, start with you. You're the Beyond Beer title. So is non-alcoholic a segment within that Beyond Beer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, when we look at no-low, we kind of look at it in a few different ways. There's obviously the no-low alcoholic offerings. There's also consumers who are looking for balanced lifestyle, looking at low, no carb offerings, calories, sugars, whatnot. So at Labatt, we really do take a bit of a balanced approach, for sure, starting with non-alc. Non-alc is a space we have put a much bigger emphasis in over the last few years. Budweiser Prohibition was actually one of the first big investments we made 8 years ago when I joined the company. It was my first project. At the time, it was seen as very odd that we were putting such a big brand behind something that was non-alcoholic, and I think now you're starting to see so many brands. You see Heineken 0.0 has been very successful in the space. Corona Sunbrew launched this year. and we're really optimistic with how that's doing. And so absolutely, that's one way we look at this no-low trend. But then we also look at it from other ways. So obviously we look at no-low offerings within the beer segment. So a great example would be Michelob Ultra. We look at offerings that offer something that's a little bit more, again, balanced to the consumer, where it's a lower carb offering that still sort of delivers on the benefits of beer and that awesome flavor. And then we also look at it within Beyond Beer. We're seeing all these segments pop up. Beyond Beer RTD didn't exist in the way that it does today 5 years ago. And so within even that space, it's super fragmented, but consumers are in some cases demanding full flavor, and there's a place for that. But then there's also no-low that they're looking for, such as seltzers and vodka soda. So neutral is another example of how we've been able to deliver on that with a very 0 grams sugar offering, because again, there is a time and a place when a consumer might be looking for that. So yes, no-low in general. I mean, we look at it within non-alcohol, but we also do look at it in other spaces where consumers are looking for less, but still looking to participate within that occasion.
I was just going to say, when I started, I worked at Heineken for 4 years, so one of the things that absolutely blew my mind is that new entrants, 60% of people coming into the non-al category are 19 to 34 years old, right? That was just like mind-blowing to me. And it's not an and/or, right? There's room for both. So that's another thing, a misconception of people drinking non-al that we talk to our customers about a lot, is that it's not one or the other, right? They can have both, and it's really important. And then also, I think it's just, to your point, the category is changing, and it's cool, right? We have to start as brand marketers, and we do this a lot on Heineken 0.0. It's not something you have to apologize for. It's something you should be really proud of. And I think you'd see as brand marketers, we're starting to move towards, like, those brands are cool, and we're proud to represent them, and you should be proud to drink them as well, right?
I'm gonna be the opposite of that a little bit. I'm a fan of the low for a variety of reasons. Low calorie, low carb, low alcohol as an option. Also, as a country and our industry now has many players that are tied in cannabis and alcohol, including all of our companies. And I would say that it's a nice option when somebody is consuming cannabis at the same time, so we're still able to offer them a craft beverage. But I will say on the no side, the non-alcoholic particularly, I will be the first one to admit it has been just a money dump for us. And it has been not only for our company, but for me as an investor. I will say that it has been 6 years of a lot of money into it and nothing out of it. I hope eventually it will be, but I feel like sometimes fads are just that, and I really do. I'm watching very carefully the next 5 years to say, is it something that actually has sustainable legs, is profitable, and is just not something everybody wants to talk about? Because a part of the problem of the no side is that consumers are often expecting a cheaper price point, or expecting something that is not really what it used to be 15, 20 years ago. Now we're all who make no products are making real beers, real gins, real tequilas, and then de-alcoholizing it, which takes a lot of labor, takes a lot of energy, but we're not getting the same price and the same volume as we would, an understanding of the marketplace by consumers. So I think there's a lot of education still to go, but it's nice that there's an option for people who are maybe doing dry January or doing a little bit of both. It doesn't have to be exclusive. But I will be the first one to admit I am not on the no train because I've lost a lot of money, and many other people have, trying to get onto that. But sometimes that's first mover status. So I think we all would be looking as an industry in 5 years that there be some brands out there and some companies that are doing well in that market, and the consumers are following the brands too.
So you're all marketers. Is this a consumer-driven trend, or is this an industry-driven trend?
I would probably, my opinion is that it's consumer-driven. I think everything, Lindsay said it, what we see is especially younger generations are moving into a space where moderation is a big thing that they care about. And I think that within that, it's not an all-in or other situation. I think there's just sort of wanting to participate in occasion, but not necessarily wanting maybe to go as much into it. And so that's why we're kind of looking at, and I think that, again, I'm only going off of the brands that we oversee, but we look at brands like Corona Sun Brew has been able to deliver an amazing product that tastes great. As someone who is 9 months pregnant right now, like being able to still participate in that occasion and have something that actually tastes good. And then again, within Corona's brand positioning, the way that we made it distinct in that space is we added vitamin D. Because again, Corona was born outside, it's a brand that lives on the beach. Vitamin D, we're in, a country that doesn't get a whole lot of it. And so it really was able to deliver on this like functional benefit that actually really makes sense for that product. And I think it really clicked with consumers, and the results have been really positive. But I think to Manjeet's point, that's not necessarily the norm for everything, right? Like you really do have to find your way into it. That makes sense, and also make sure that maybe if it's a brand that actually can fit within the consumer that you are looking to get. And in our case with Corona, it really was more like that co-ed, even female-led sort of consumer that was telling us that this is something that they are looking for.
I was just going to add to that. I think one of our biggest learnings over the 4 years with Heineken 0.0 is that we had to support the brand as well, and that was something that we learned really quick and really fast. And we did that through the F1 partnership. So F1 is, again, incredibly successful for Heineken. When you drive, never drink with 0.0, incredibly successful, and we have that kind of global horsepower behind the brand. And it's growing, like, has anyone seen Drive to Survive? Like, it's crazy, right? So to have a brand associated with that is huge. And we've seen the results in Quebec especially, where we do have the Grand Prix, and able to support it and fund marketing behind it.
Beer drinking occasions is a very Canadian thing. We really love sharing some time over a pint. And the on-premise sector, specifically in the low and no. Let's talk about that a little bit, about that person going into the pub or the patio, wants the drinking occasion but doesn't want the alcohol or wants to limit the amount of alcohol. What do you see as the challenges for the on-premise sector to sort of make that offering interesting enough to get the price point that's also interesting for that operator?
Great tasting cocktails or beers that have functional, is a great point, the functional beverage side of things, just something more than water or a pop. And so you do have to offer more in it, and it can be something that looks pretty, that tastes good, or all of the above. But it does have to, like you say, benefit the on-premise and the bar or beverage or the bar or restaurant to say that they can make some money at it. And you can do that by upping its value by doing some new things. Collaboration, definitely with brewers, to say, how can you mix maybe some of the products, make some fancy, beer cocktails, which are huge, that are on the no-low side. So some creativeness is really important there.
I think Manjeet's totally right, though. I think taste is key. At the end of the day, I think consumers are looking, and I think that's the baggage that sits in the non-alc space, is that it used to not taste good. And there's a lot of baggage to shed, and some people have, co-opted into that category and have realized there are good tasting beverages now. But there's a lot of people who still don't believe it or have tried it. And so I think in that, we as consumer packaged goods leaders, can offer a lot of that to a customer and to bars and restaurants, whether it's through beer or RTD offerings. But I think also even for a bar, like creating that same sort of experience that you create as a bartender, like the art is still there, right? Like the fruit you put in, the sort of like recipes you come up with. I think that as long as it tastes good, it could, and the craftsmanship is there, I think consumers will be more intrigued to participate in it.
Yeah, and just to add to your point, like I think sometimes we forget the last 2 years have been a little different, right? So it comes back to when I first started in beer 14 years ago, we built strong brands in the on-premise. Experiences are important, and sampling is important as well. And the last 2 years, we haven't been able to do that. So launching our RTD and seltzers has been incredibly hard. Making sure that you have those products, like with Vizzy, for example, that stand for something as well, right? So really connecting Busy back to the LGBTQ plus community was super important for the brand to actually have purpose and stand for something and be proud of that.
You find barriers where you least expect them. I was talking to an institutional owner last week, runs a whole bunch of campus pubs, and they have exclusivity agreements on their non-beverage alcohol sales. Those companies don't offer non-alcoholic beer, so he's having a hard time bringing non-alcoholic beer into those campuses. So watch out for your contracts. Non-alcoholic beer is a real thing, so make room for them in your contracts moving forward. And Joe talked about seltzers, and maybe the toughest question of the day, who wants to take a crack at defining what a seltzer is?
Something that's not a beer. That's clear in color, maybe not.
I mean, it depends, obviously. Like, I think seltzer is one way to put it. You can also look at it as a vodka soda. It's like neutral is a vodka soda. It's carbonated water with vodka and some natural flavoring, or we also have a juice offering as well. So I think that's like the easiest way to kind of look at it, is it's going to have a different base. And so again, I can only speak for neutral, but that's ultimately how we define a vodka soda seltzer.
One of the interesting things that we always look at, we tell our customers and sales team, this is how we look at it. This is our playing field. So 40% of RTDs is seltzer soda. Stop. And then 60% is RTDs. And RTDs has a lot of subsegments within, right? So we have canned cocktails, coolers, hard teas, and Caesars. So there's a lot going on in there. But I think as a whole team, we have to do a better job of just helping our customers, especially on premise, understand the playing field and help our consumers do the same.
I think it's changed. I think that it started as a vodka soda, and now it's basically anything that isn't beer. Everybody is redefining what seltzer is when you go to on-premise or when you go to a liquor store. And I think that's the fun part, is people want to try something that is maybe low, whatever, carb, calorie, sometimes taste. Look for something different. And a part of that used to be vodka, but now you get seltzers with tequila. We're making one with rum, for example. Like every type of spirit, flavored malt beverages. It's made with malt in the United States because it sells at different places. So I think to try to define seltzers, kind of like to try to define beer. There's many people who many years ago would have said an IPA isn't a beer. Something with mango isn't a beer. And I think that trying to define the definition of beer, seltzer, anything is really not that smart anymore. I think it's a great marketing tool to begin with to get somebody interested, but it has definitely changed.
So how should an operator display these new products on their menus? Should they be in their own section? Should they be part of beer? Should they be based on the alcohol content? How would you like to see your brands being offered to consumers in the on-premise channel?
Yeah, I'll take that one because we have this conversation all the time. So it's of our thought process that it should be separate, right? We have consumers who are actively looking for those trends, but we can also get creative. We just did an awesome promotion at the Duchess of Markham, and we had a code where you could scan and learn about all of the seltzers and RTD beverages. So example, you scan and what's Simply Spiked, and then you can understand everything around it. And just, beer's done such an amazing job of having stories, right? And it should be no different for our RTD seltzer category as well. So don't be afraid to tell the stories, to do the sampling, to be proud, to build those brands on premise, because we owe it to our customers and ultimately our consumers as well.
So you talked about brands and how important brands were to the beer category, right? Heritage, brands that have been around for 100, 150 years. But we're now seeing sort of two approaches to the marketing of these new categories. One, tied to an existing brand, or create a new brand. Room for both?
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
Which horse is going to win?
I didn't hear that.
Which horse is going to win?
I think it depends. I don't think it's an all-in-one bucket approach. Like, at the end of the day, consumers want more choice, right? And so you kind of, one, have to listen to the consumer, and if there is a need that consumer is looking for, or a certain benefit that perfectly aligns with a brand you already have, then that could be a very natural extension for that brand. And I think Corona is a great example of that. Again, Corona delivers that beach, outside, outdoor feeling. We also know that, you know, women were looking for more non-alc options. Corona felt like a natural place to go with a non-alc offering. But that's not to say that every brand's going to make sense for that. There are absolutely brands that we call pure plays that, you know, we launched that absolutely haven't been in another space. Cutwater is a great example. There was no, you know, as the canned cocktail space was growing and consumers are looking for more of that, there really was no beer or RTD brand within our portfolio that naturally made sense to go there. And so you look at potentially something that's new to world. But I think that that's our job as brand marketers, is to listen to the consumer needs and then see if it aligns within the portfolio you have, if it naturally makes sense. And then if not, then you potentially have to look at, you know, other opportunities.
I was just going to say, I think you have to be, just to your point, I think you have to follow the insights and be purposeful, right? So I think consumers can step out when something doesn't fit from miles away, and I think we've learned that in so many ways. Coors Seltzer is a huge example of like one of our leading seltzers, but we had to take a step back and make sure we were making the right decisions for the brand and innovating very purposely, so because it has that iconic Coors name, but we wanted to make sure it has that iconic refreshment behind it as well, right?
We talked about low calorie, low carb, gluten-free as functionally driven trends. Seltzers the same thing, or is there another driver behind the growth in seltzers beyond functionality? Are consumers looking for image, taste? What's the driver behind that category?
I'd say, yeah, for sure. Image, taste, something different, something innovative, something that you can just pop open and have something unique, whereas normally you'd have to have maybe 4 ingredients at home. And so convenience, a variety of different things, but also that in this day and age, not everybody wants to drink the same thing every night or when you're out. A big part of experiences now is trying new things. And I think that is, whether you like them or not, that's not the point, is the point that people are trying new things. And in answer to your previous question, is kind of tied there, is that innovation has always and will continue to come from the people that are coming up in an industry, from entrepreneurs who are trying to just rattle stuff. And I think that that's how all of our big companies started. But it's hard to innovate when you're large, and that is where there is space for new entrepreneurs in the space, and where many of us then see and notice what is going on and what people are liking. And so I think there is always space for both legacy organizations and also new startups to come up with new categories, but also to get people interested in our sector and in our category. If we want to be truthful, let's say that, you know, alcohol, beer especially, sales are declining. Everybody knows it. And so we have to be innovative. We have to be creative. We've got to try new things to bring people back to trying our products. And if they're in a different category but still made by us, great.
COVID aside, do we still believe that on-premise is where trial happens and where you can start to build a brand?
Yes.
I believe that. I do. And I think it's really interesting, and we have brands in all of our portfolios where a serving ritual is super important, right? And you can see it. You can see when somebody has, like, you know, Belgian or Blue Moon, for example, has the orange wheel. You see it go across the bar, and I get excited. I'm like, watch it, watch people. So people are like, I want that. It's the theater, right? It's the excitement. We have to get back to that. We have to encourage people that something comes in a can, pour it in a glass. It's beautiful. You can look at our seltzers and RTDs in a beautiful way, like we do beer as well, right? So again, I think that there's such a purpose for our on-premise.
And for an operator looking to build a long-term relationship with a beer supplier, what's that discussion like? What kind of questions should they be asking you to know that you're the right fit for that operator?
I think, first of all, we have a booth, so you're welcome to come and meet our reps today. But I think for us, it's about what are your needs, and then how can we help you deliver against those needs. So again, using some of our brands as an example, if you're an operator that's looking to drive patio sales, and you really want to, you're either struggling with traffic in the summer, or maybe you're in a place where summer traffic is super important to your business, we have a brand that really, is an icon within that space. You've got Corona, and we have tools that can help you ultimately deliver an amazing patio experience through umbrellas and buckets and different sort of promotional programs. And then if you're an operator that's looking to, deliver on a holiday season, as an example, we have a brand in Stella that was born out of the holidays. So again, those are two very broad examples, but every operator is so unique and different. And so I think it's better understanding your needs and connecting with one of our reps, because our reps are primed to, deliver against a big portfolio that we offer, and they know what brand can most, inherently support that need. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
We're almost running out of time, but I'd like to open it up to the crowd. If anybody has any questions for these amazing marketers, just raise your hand or just yell out. Nothing? One last question for me then. Now that we are back in open, where are the kind of investments that you're bringing into the community now? What's your focus? Is it the local festival? Is it the sports teams? Where do you see value in terms of investing in local communities? Now let's start with you.
I feel like it's probably my buzzword today, but it is a balanced approach for us. It really depends on the brand. And so I think, again, obviously we're very excited that the on-premise is coming back, and so that's a huge focus for us. And that's where we're putting a lot of, obviously, our focus, especially going into the summer. But again, we have brands like Bud Light that naturally, against the consumer, that that resonates with this brand and the passion points that we've built around it. Festivals, obviously, we activate festivals across the country with our partnership with Live Nation. That's not the case for a brand like Stella Artois or Neutral, which are going after a very different sort of consumer and ultimately needs state and occasion. And so it depends on brands, and again, it's about that balance, because we don't want to put a brand somewhere that maybe isn't inherently super natural for it to show up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think, and just to kind of touch on a few of your questions, we should be listening to the operator. We should. We'd be spending 75% of the time listening to the questions and asking questions, right? Because again, I'm going to keep going back to this stat that 1 in every 4 people is not born in this country, right? Our Canada is changing, and we have to understand that there's changing needs for changing accounts. So we say at Molson, we want to invite more people to the bar, and that's really important. But that spans across our whole portfolio, right? So just like we said, we have a beer for that, but we also have a seltzer RTV for that as well. But it's listening to the operator, because things are changing, and if we do have sponsorships and if we do have things that we can leverage, it's not like we love hockey, we have an amazing partnership with MLSE, but then there's also, Champions League and F1, and there's, we sponsor pickleball now with Busy. Like, there are different things for different Canadians, and we're super proud of that as well.
And I'd say we're not focused on sports, these two fabulous companies are, but I would say what we do is getting as of last summer, getting back into the communities. One thing we feel is that a lot of operators and also a lot of beer drinkers are getting back into their communities and seeing their friends, their families, their local pub or restaurant again. And so it's about getting back to them to say, hey, do you know what we've done the last 3 years? What other new products can you come and taste them? And a variety of different things where they've been missing out. They've been seeing all of our brands at retail, because, well, everybody had to buy at retail. So it's about bringing them back in, and maybe what they were wondering about, that I saw an ad for this, a social media campaign, somebody else was talking about this. And so it's a lot of that smaller education, and definitely a lot of music festivals, because everybody is wanting live music again. And so one thing we find is that has been where the people are at, and where they want to hear from us and see us and ask us questions. And I think that one of the nice things about the time that we all had at home was that we had a lot of time to research things that we liked and didn't like, and a lot of people understanding health benefits, understanding the good and the bad side. If we gained a couple pounds, maybe where was that coming from, or what was in the food or drink that I was consuming. So people have a lot more questions and are definitely more health-minded, or just wondering what are they putting in their bodies now. And I think that is a nice place to be able to talk to them about it.
So it's a great place to end up today. please join me in thanking our esteemed guest, Manjit Quincy.
Thanks, CJ.
Thank you.